Today, I've got 6 positions on the Greek gift, and one of them shows exactly why this sacrifice does not always work. So let's see when bishop to h7 is brilliant and when is it just a blunder. Position 1 is Mikhail Chigorin versus Alapin from St. Petersburg 1883. Chigorin was one of the strongest attacking players of the 19th century and a two-time world championship challenger. Alapin was a very strong Russian master and is best known today for the Alapin Sicilian. This is a classic attacking setup. Pause the video here, it's white to play, find the move that starts the attack. Chigorin started his attack and played bishop to h7 check, and if you have observed, he has already sacrificed his rook and now he's sacrificing his bishop. And the best continuation from here is capture this bishop, and after knight g5 check, he can play king g8, and when queen to h5 comes, the idea is checkmate right away. He can simply give the queen back with queen takes g5, and obviously after bishop takes g5, he can simply play bishop takes e5, and we'll get this position where black can hold this position. But unfortunately, after bishop takes h7, he played king to h8, which is simply a blunder. And now Chigorin continued the game with knight g5. The idea still remains the same, queen h5. And here Alapin played g6, stopping queen h5. But it won't make the big difference because now white continued the game with queen g4. The idea is still same, queen h4. And now he should continue the game with knight takes e5. This is the best reply. The point is, after queen to h4, he'll play king g7, and after white continue the game with knight e6 check, he can take with the f pawn, and after queen h6, he'll go to king f7, and now this knight is protecting g6. That's a whole point of playing knight takes e5. But unfortunately, he played bishop takes e5, which is simply a blunder because the same variation which we have just seen, that's gonna happen in the game. White continue with queen h4, and after king g7, he played knight e6 check, and after f takes e6, there's a queen h6 check, and after king f7, there's a bishop takes g6. And if there's a knight on e5, that could not have been possible, but unfortunately it's possible now. And black continued the game with king e7, but white did not stop it, and he keep going with queen h4 check, and after rook to f6, just simply blocking because anyways black doesn't have a better option. He continued with bishop a3 check, and after d6, queen h7, after king f8, there's a queen h8, king e7, queen g7, and black king is out of squares. He has to play rook f7, and there's a simple checkmate on f7. Now you can see how dangerous it is to not save your king and having nothing in front of the king. Now let's go to the next one. Hello everyone, I'm Aniket, an Arena International Master, and this is Chess Tactics episode 12. This series is focused on practical patterns that win games, not fancy puzzles. Today's pattern is the Greek gift. The Greek gift is a bishop sacrifice on h7 or h2 against a castled king. The idea is simple, you drag the king out, follow up with a knight jump, bring more pieces into the attack, and try to mate or win major material. It's called Greek gift because a sacrifice looks like a gift, but accepting it can be fatal. Much like the Trojan horse in Greek legend. In practical games, this tactic works when the attack comes in fast and the defender cannot organize in time. Let's understand it better with a simple example. So here, the idea is just same like we have seen in position 1. The king is having no defenders in front of the king. And whenever the king is alone, and you can clearly see the bishop is targeting h7, the knight can jump on g5, and the queen can jump on h5. There's no reason to play a passive chess and just start your attack on black king. So here, white is simply gonna sacrifice on h7. After king takes h7, there's a knight g5 check. You just need to be careful of one thing, that g5 squared should be protected somehow. Otherwise, queen will simply capture the knight and white may lose the game. But here in this position, the bishop is protecting the knight, so white is safe. And after king g8, there's a queen h5, and there's no way to save the checkmate, so he has to give up a queen. And now white can take the queen back with a bishop or a queen, doesn't matter, and he's gonna simply win the game. If you enjoy practical chess tactics explained, subscribe now, because this series is built to help you spot these patterns in your own games. Now let's go to position 2. Position 2 is Efim versus NN from 1952. Efim was a two-time world championship challenger and one of the strongest attacking players of his era. This is another position where the Greek gift idea becomes very dangerous. The sacrifice is not about style, it's about whether the attack lands fast enough. Pause the video here, it's white to play, find the move that breaks open the king. Again, the same idea. We are simply gonna sacrifice the bishop on h7, and after king takes h7, in this position, if you're thinking of knight g5, it's actually not gonna work. The problem with knight g5 is there's a king h6. And that's it. There's nothing you can do about the king coming here because there is no bishop here. That's the point. If there's a bishop on c1, we can move the knight with this cover check. But in this position, there's no bishop and you may lose the game. So that is why you need to be very careful. So after king takes h7, there's only one move which is working for white, and that is queen h5. And after king g8, there's a knight g5. And in this position, black simply resigned the game. The point is, usually black gives up a queen and play the game for few more moves. But unfortunately, in this position, that's not gonna work, because if we decided to play queen takes g5, there's a h takes g5, and if you see, the rook got open and there is checkmate coming. And there is no good way to stop the checkmate. Yes, he can delay for one move and play f5, but unfortunately, this is gonna lose to g6. And that's it. There's nothing can be done and it's lost. And that is why after knight g5, black simply resigned the game. Now, let's go to the next one. If you're serious about improving and want structured training instead of random puzzles, I work with students personally. The link to train with me is in description. Now, let's continue. Position 3 is Karl versus Géza from Vienna 1907. Karl was one of the best players in the world and came with one game of becoming world champion in 1910. Géza was a world-class Hungarian grandmaster and one of the strongest positional players of his time. This position shows that the Greek gift is not only for wild attacking players, however, strong technical players used it too when the position justified it. In this position, the game is just running draw, and black should continue the game with bishop takes d5. That's it. Even though there's no defender in front of the king, still bishop takes h7 will not be that great, because after king takes h7 and queen h5, usually it works, but in this position it's not working because king g8 and rook can capture back on d5 now. If you see, white is having not too many pieces in front of his king to attack. Like he doesn't have a knight to play knight g5. And if he doesn't have a knight, he cannot threaten a checkmate, the rooks can't do much, and the bishop is also blocked by his own pawn. That is why in this position, bishop takes d5 should be the real idea. But unfortunately, Géza played bishop takes e5, and that is simply a blunder. So pause the video here, it's white to play, find the move that starts the kingside attack. Point here is, this bishop on b2 got activated because black captured the pawn on e5. And white started the game with bishop takes h7 check. After king takes h7, he continued with queen h5 check. And after king g8, the real idea was bishop takes e5. And now queen got overload, protect the bishop and protect f7, because if you see, the queen and rook is attacking on f7. And now if black tries to take this bishop on e5, black will lose the game after queen takes f7 check, king h8, and there is simple rook f5. And here black is gonna lose the queen because rook h5 will lead to checkmate, but black is having few checks, so he would love to give some checks before he resigns. So black can continue with queen e3 check. After king h1, he can even sacrifice the queen on e1, and after rook takes, there's a rook takes back, and now rook f1 simply saves the game for white and white can win. So that is why after bishop takes e5, black cannot touch this bishop. And he decided to play f6 and hoping to save the game. But unfortunately, Karl played bishop takes f6. He simply sacrificed his bishop again. And obviously, there's nothing he can do. He can just give a queen e3 check, but it does nothing. So he decided to accept this challenge and played g takes f6. And now there are only two moves for white which are winning. The moves are either rook d3 or rook f3. And you simply want to play rook g3 and you will be winning. So here he continued with rook d3, the best one. And after queen h7, hoping to trade the queens, but Karl continued the game with the best manner and played rook g3 check. And now king cannot go to f file because he will lose a queen. So he has to play king h8, and if he likes, he can take the queen and win the game. But he simply played queen f3 back, and the threat is rook h3, which will win the queen. So he has to move the queen, and he played queen f7, and now white simply played queen g4 with so many multiple threats, and that is why after queen g4, black simply resigned the game. The best continuation for black is rook e7, and if you try to do this, there's a rook h3 check. And now he has to give up a queen on h7, and yes, we can take the queen, and after rook takes, we'll have this position which is completely winning, and white can even take the pawn on f6. Black cannot do anything. And this is Géza can clearly see, and that is why after queen g4, he simply resigned the game. Now, let's go to the next one. Position 4 is Boris Spassky versus Geller from Candidates Semi-Final 1965. Spassky was the 10th world champion and one of the most natural attacking players in the chess history. Geller was an elite Soviet grandmaster who defeated multiple world champions and was famous for his opening preparation and dynamic play. At this level, a Greek gift is never just a guess. If the sacrifice is played, is backed by concrete calculation. And here, in this position, the game was almost equal, and even black is the one who is having an extra pawn. But it's never about the pawn, and it's black to play, and black should continue the game with g6. Just closing this bishop, he can hold the game. But unfortunately, he played bishop to f8. That is simply a blunder. So pause the video here. It's white to play, find the move that begins the forcing sequence. And in this position, white continued the attack and played bishop takes h7 check. And this one you must have guessed. Good. After king takes h7, this is the real move, and if you have seen, knight g5 is not possible because of your own pawn and you can't even capture it. So that is why what you had to play is g6, simply sacrificing your pawn again. And here he did not accept it and he simply moved the king back to g8, and now it's the same idea. White continue with the knight g5, and if queen h5 lands, there is no way to stop the checkmate on h7, and that is why black continue with f takes g6, and now queen h5 is not possible, so Spassky played queen f3, and his idea is queen f7, which will lead to checkmate eventually. So that is why Geller decided to give up a queen and played queen takes g5, but after bishop takes d5, they played few more moves, but eventually white won the game very easily. Now let's go to the next one. Position 5 is Anthony Miles versus Walter Browne from Olympia 1982. Anthony Miles was England's first grandmaster and a very creative attacking player. Walter Browne was a 6-time US champion and one of the toughest practical fighters in modern chess. This is the kind of position where the Greek gift has to be backed by the real follow-up. Against strong defenders, one slow move and the whole attack can fail. So here we got this position where the material is equal and white is just not clearly winning. So maybe black can hold. He just need to continue the game with bishop takes e4 followed by bishop b8, making his own threats, and he would be fine. But unfortunately, he continued the game with rook to d8, and that is simply a blunder. So pause the video here. It's white to play, find the move that opens the king and keeps the attack going. And here, white continued the game with bishop takes h7 check, and after king takes h7, there's a queen h5 check, king g8. White is having not too much material to continue his attack, and there's no knight g5. So how is he gonna continue his attack? And it looks like we're gonna continue the same idea like we did in the previous ones. Rook c4, rook h4, and then queen h8. But unfortunately, that is very slow. Because if you try to play rook c4, you will lose the game after rook d5. Because that move comes with a tempo. And now you have to move the queen, and queen is having not too many good squares. And even if you try to play queen h3, there is simply an f6. And now whenever you play rook h4, and it won't come with checkmate on h8 because king can always escape on f7, and he is fine and he can start making his own threats. There is no problem for black. So that is why after king g8, you need to be very careful and do not play a slow move. And the whole point of sacrificing your first bishop was to sacrifice the second bishop and play bishop to g7. That's it. Game over. Now, king has to accept it, otherwise queen h8 will lead to checkmate. He can play the slow moves like f5 or f6 and hope for best, but unfortunately, after queen h8 check, king f7, he can play bishop f8 check, and now rook can't even take it back because of queen h7 and winning the queen, and it just dead lost for black. So that is why after bishop takes d7, Walter decided to take the bishop as well and played king takes g7, and Anthony showed us how to win this position, and he started with queen g5 check, king h8, and now do not blunder the game again. You might be thinking, oh yes, rook c4, rook h4, game over, we are winning. Problem with rook c4 is you will instantly lose all of your advantage and the game is just draw because of f6. And now if you're thinking of h4, there's a queen h7. And yes, rook takes h7, king takes h7, and you might be thinking, oh yes, we can give a check and we are fine, there's no problem. But unfortunately, if you see, white is having only queen and rook is already out of the game so far, and black is having 2 rooks for 1 queen and 2 bishops for 1 rook. And obviously white got 2 extra pawns as well. That is just a simple draw. It's an equal game, nothing major is happening, and if there's someone who's pushing for win, that is definitely black, not white. That is why after king h8, you cannot play rook c4. You have to play one specific move, and that is queen f6, making sure there's no f6 or f5 whenever the time comes. And that is why after king g8, now you play rook c4 and there is no defense against it. And obviously black can clearly see that, and that is why black simply resigned the game in this position. Now let's go to the next one. Position 6 is Miguel versus Yasser from Biel Interzonal 1985. Miguel was a very strong Argentine grandmaster known for active and aggressive play. Yasser is a 4-time US champion and one of the best known chess teachers and commentators in the world. This final example is very important because here the Greek gift did not work. Many players know the pattern, but the real skill is knowing when the sacrifice is sound and when it is just too early. Pause the video here, it's white to play, find the Greek gift idea and then decide whether it actually works or not. If you see, white is better. Even though black is the one who's having an extra pawn, but white is better. And white started his attack and played bishop takes h7, which is so far the best. And after king takes h7, he continued with knight g5. So far, everything was going good. He might be expecting king g8, and after queen h5, black got a defense. He got 2 knights, and knights are watching on f6 at the same time. So here, black got his only defense and he can play knight to f6. Yes, he knows he's gonna lose one of the knight, but it's okay if you can save the checkmate. And after e takes f6, he can capture this pawn with another knight and attack the queen at the same time. And after queen h4, black can continue with rook d8. And yes, it looks like he is okay. There's no big threat coming and black can hold. But unfortunately, after knight g5 checked, he did something which confuses white. And he continued the game with queen g6, which is ideally the mistake, but it's not easy to punish this mistake. And the way to punish this mistake is white has to play f4, just defending the knight first before he moves his queen and do some damage. But it's very difficult to find this move and he did not play it. He continued the game with queen g4 right away without protecting the knight. Now black can continue with knight f6 and the game is nothing more than draw. The point is, after e takes f6, black is having a great defensive idea and the move was queen to f4. Because white did not play f4, now he can play queen f4, and if white queen will not take it, white knight is hanging, so he has to take the queen. So after queen takes f4 and knight takes f4, we'll get this position where it's equal, and if there's anyone who is pushing, that's black. Because there's a knight hanging on g5 and the pawn hanging, so black is gonna win a pawn and eventually black can push a bit. But unfortunately, it's not easy to see this position. Black also did a mistake and played f5, simply attacking the queen, and white played queen g3 and black continued the game with the best possible way, which is f4, and after queen h3, it looks very dangerous because the threat is queen h7. And it looks like black can take the knight and win the game. Problem is, black cannot take the knight because if black decided to take the knight with king takes g5, he lost after queen h7. And now there's no defense with knight f3. And the game is about to get over. So it looks like black can take the knight but black cannot. And here there's only one way for black to continue the game, otherwise he's gonna get crushed very badly, and the way was knight to f6. He has to give up some material back, and that's the only way to stop White's attack. And he did that, and now the position is so complex, it's not easy for humans to keep finding the best moves. And here, White continued with knight e4, and he lost all of his advantage. The game is equal, and they continue the game for few more moves, but eventually Black won the game because whenever this pawn will capture this knight, he will take back with g pawn, and Black is the one who's having an extra pawn, and that is why eventually Black won the game. So that is the example of when Greek gift is not gonna work, and you need to be very careful of what you are doing, and you need to calculate very deeply before you play bishop takes h7. So that's a Greek gift. The point is not just to sacrifice on h7 or h2 because it looks attacking. Point is to know when the king can be dragged out, when your pieces can join quickly enough, and when the defender cannot survive the pressure. 3 things to look for. First, your knight and queen can join the attack quickly. Second, the enemy king has very few safe squares after the sacrifice. Third, the defender is too slow or too far away to help in time. This tactic matters a lot in practical games because kingside attacks happen all the time at club level. If you understand the pattern properly, you'll spot more winning attacks, and you will also avoid unsound sacrifices in your own games. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for more practical tactics and comment which position was the hardest and tell me what move you found before I revealed it. I will see you in the next one.